Amazon's doing dark patterns again. Legacy customers with Amazon's Ring alarm system will soon have to pay double for its monitoring service. According to emails sent to Ring Protect Plus customers, they will be migrated to the Pro plan in March, which costs $200 a year as opposed to $100 a year. That's
bit of an increase.
That's double the number of hundreds of dollars a year.
That's
bad.
Yes.
One of those customers happens to be Verge writer Sean Hollister, who found it strange that Amazon's email started with, "This is your reminder."
As it's the first time.
Yeah, he did manage to find an FAQ that claimed that customers had been emailed about the change in September of 2021. But he then dug up the relevant email, whose subject line read, "Important, your plan name has changed." In the body of the email, it read, "Don't worry, everything else is staying the same." The actual notification that the plan itself would be phased out and migrated to Ring Protect Pro was located in a small footnote at the bottom of the email. That is skeezy.
You know, if they got the upgrade for free, then sure.
Other Ring users have posted emails from Amazon on Reddit, which have the heading, "New name, new features, same great price." These emails then go on to note that their subscription will no longer include alarm professional monitoring and SOS emergency response. Amazon has not given a reason for the price increase. This is flipping wild. Here's some screenshots. This does not sound like a price increase.
Here's a question for you. Here's a question. Is this puffery?
I mean, apparently that's a throwback to our first topic for those of you who are just joining us.
Yeah. That's a massive yikes. This sucks. By the way, what is happening down there?
That's the deep brand spot. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I don't know how to deal with this because we've talked about this fairly recently, actually, where I basically said, look, a contract should be a contract and you shouldn't be able to unilaterally change it. And the response to that is, well, from a legal standpoint, the contract is auto-renewing on a monthly basis, and every month it's a new contract. So they're just giving their customers a new contract. The problem with that logic, though, is that in my mind, there's an implicit long-term expectation for anything with an upfront cost that we are not, in fact, on a month-to-month deal here where you can change it anytime you want. And for something like a security system, that upfront cost is a lot more than just, a few $100s on a camera here and there. It could be creating a workflow around it. It could be training people on how to use it. It could be the time that you invest in installing it. Once you're in this ecosystem, it's actually a hugely, highly high friction. The point is that it can be a lot of work to get out of it. And so if all you have is this, month-to-month agreement that can just be changed unilaterally by the provider at any time, what is your protection? What is the point of having a contract? And I don't know how to deal with this because, you can't force a company to maintain the same terms of service and the same pricing model in perpetuity. That's not fair or right either. But you also can't be in a situation where freaking everything is like negotiating with Darth Vader. I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it further. Well, why? But I'm stuck in this deal.
Yeah.
I'm Lando.
What if I think we've had these conversations before, but what if you were offered a full refund at that moment? Like, hey, the subscription cost is doubling. We're going to actually tell you properly instead of trying to hide it. To be clear, let's make that major change, and then offer you a refund. Because I understand the initial buy-in thing is rough, but I can also understand where, market conditions might change. They might need to charge more for the upkeep and maintenance of something. But if that's the case, do they just offer to essentially buy back your product?
I think if they buy back the product, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Google did that with Stadia. I wasn't mad.
Yep.
Like if you can't afford, if it's no longer sustainable for you to offer me the service that you offered me at the price the price that we all agreed on, then by all means, here you can take your stuff back and I'll take my money back.
You can say as much as you want about how like they should have scoped it in better and like understood their costs and stuff like that. And that's all fair, well, and good when you're talking about things without doing things. But when you start doing things, you run into this problem where basically every company, if they want to be competitive, have to operate on economies of scale. So when you're developing something, you have to assume some amount of scale and price into that. And if you don't reach that scale, it might not be economically viable anymore. But at that point, like, it's not your customer's fault that it isn't economically viable.
Yeah, that's not their problem.
So you got to buy back your devices.
Squirrel King makes a really great point here. Like, let's pretend that an employment contract worked like this. Would you accept that? Would you accept an employment contract that was essentially a month-to-month contract that they could just change at any time?
I guess employment contracts don't, but contracts sort of do, depending on the terms. Usually they max at a year, and then you have to renegotiate.
They can, but that's a little more complicated because a lot of the time, a contractor can also make the argument that if they're fulfilling the role of an employee, that they should be considered an employee, and their protections should be employee-grade protections as opposed to just contract protections.
Yeah.
Like there's... No, I don't think people would accept that. And so if we don't accept that, that we could just be paid less. If our employer decides arbitrarily this month that we'll be paid less,
obviously I agree with that, to be clear. But it's I'm trying to think of scenarios where that does happen. And I guess it happens on a company level, but I don't think it normally happens on an individual level. Like if we have some form of work contract with some company, it's very likely that it might be a shorter term renewing contract.
Yeah, it would probably
be. But that's
be.
company to company. That's not person to company or person to person. But I think usually person to person, there's more protections.
And I'm talking about like consumer protections.
Yeah.
Like protections for the individual. It just feels like we've ignored them for so long.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it.
Lena Khan, dude. She's doing work.